Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your breakfast bankroll for Thursday, April 28th, 2022. It's here, the NFL draft. For some, it's Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, whatever you want to say. For others, it's Groundhog Day, just another day in the office as we got a lot more action to get to before the first pick is announced at the Bellagio, the Vegas Strip. The place will be electric for sure. Get all your EV and CLV cans ready for the first pick because, all the so-called experts and sharps have all this huge plus money on Trevon Walker to be the number one pick from the Jags and Aiden Hutchinson to go second and yada, 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 yada. I think Thibodeau could slide to Detroit. I was just trying to talk to my buddy Craig, big Lion fan, and see what he's hearing as well. I have my Calvin Johnson jersey on, full disclosure, way back in the day when fantasy started. For me, I was a Scott Mitchell to Herman Moore guy. Obviously, a big Barry Sanders fan. Megatron was a beast for us. Made a lot of money on Megatron. But I'm supporting Calvin Johnson and the Lions today. I do hope they take Thibodeau, actually. I love Thibodeau. But that's for another story. ECSI VIPs 2-0 last night. Padres' first 5 rolls. And boy, did we have a sweat on the Astros. Full game. And 4-2 lead. Bottom of the ninth. Second and third, no outs. And Texas pushes 1 across to make it 4-3, but we hold on. Nice 5-2 week going. Anyone that watched the show yesterday, I talked about some nice value plays, and they came running home. I thought the Red Sox had some real good value last night. And I talked about Oakland and how I thought San Fran was being overpriced, and they win 1-0, a classic 1-0 battle there. So eyes are sharp as tacks in the bases, and we got a full slate today, this afternoon. I mean, only a couple games tonight, and the NBA three games tonight where again these lines are tough, meaning. Now you got a Phoenix team trying to close out, open at 2.5, now 2 at New Orleans. Dallas has now come full circle. They are a pick'em at Utah. So that whole from Utah, 5-point favorites at Dallas, 8-point favorites at home, now has come full circle there. And Philly, Toronto, you talk about pressure. This Philly team had a 3-0 lead. Now it's game 6. Toronto will be rocking there. Philly opened at 2, now 1.5. So some good, intriguing games there as well. But without further ado, let's bring him in from the Palm Tree State himself, the one and only Mr. Scott E. Webb. Morning, Scott.
Morning, Jeff. How are you today? Fired up for this NFL draft, I see.
What's that?
So fired up for this NFL draft, I see.
Yeah, like a root canal.
Yeah.
Like I've been saying, listen, I try to stay even keeled. There is just so much. There's just, so much out there. Here we're concentrating on week 3, getting ready for May 1st in baseball. You got the NBA playoffs. You got the last week of the NHL, and then in comes the NFL draft, and it's supposed to be like the world stopping. And for me, listen, I think it's just like any other holiday. You get slammed a month before with all these advertisements and commercials, and nowadays there's just so much information out there, and on social media, everyone wants to be an expert, and so well be it. So much information, so much poker playing out there. And for me, I just try to stay in my lanes, to be myself, to be who East Coast Sports Investors really is. I don't try to, say that I am Adam Schefter or Shams or Woj and try to, if I see something or hear something, I'll make sure that the people that need to know. And other than that, I'm not going to go out and get the duck boats and parades.
Well, I'm usually fired up for the NFL draft, but I just got to tell you that I think this year's draft class is. There's players in there, and there's things that are going to happen, and these guys are going to be good, and NFL teams are going to get better. But I'm just not that star power, the game changing players, the franchise changing players. I just don't think they could be there. It's just a matter of what you get excited for and all that stuff. And to be honest, I just think that it's just not there right now. I don't. Who knows who's going to go number one? All this stuff they talk about with Trevon Walker, and then it wasn't too long ago that there was a quarterback out of North Carolina who was the ultimate number one guy, and then Kenny Pickett and this and that and everything else, and I'm just sitting here and I go, well, there's Aiden Hutchinson and there's this guy and there's that guy, and then there's the offensive linemen who always go up there that nobody knows, and it's just I just think this year's draft is I don't want to call it lackluster, but at the same time, it just doesn't have the same star power effect that you could see on other drafts, and maybe that's because the quarterbacks aren't so sexy. But I don't know. I just think that this is just sort of a boring draft.
Yeah, I mean, if it plays out, I honestly, Walker goes first, so well be it. I could see Hutchinson sliding a little because Thibodeau and a few other guys move up, and then someone could get gifted Hutchinson. Michigan, he's not that sexy pick, and so are you buying the sizzle or are you buying the steak? Like I like to say. Then I think 8, 9, 10. It's going to heat up because there's going to be a big push for these wide receivers, and they all could be game changers. Everyone's looking for the next Justin Jefferson of 2 years ago or Jamar Chase from last year. So they're where, let's just say 8, 9 up until 15, 16, there could be some moves, people moving up to try to grab one. And then you start to getting closer to Pittsburgh for a quarterback. Hearing that the Saints are going to take Pickett, I forget where the Saints are actually picking. So if that is the case, they moved up. They made a trade to get Pickett. So then Willis will fall to Pittsburgh. And I was talking about the Patriots. And we had Julian Edlow on from DraftKings a couple of days ago. He's talking about Mechie from Alabama who got injured. Patriots do like him, and the Patriots do need a wide receiver, but we know what the Patriots do. When a big-time wide receiver falls to them, they just trade the pick and they move down. I mean, they had a chance at Des Bryant. They had a chance at Demaryius Thomas in that one draft. They just don't do it. And when they do take a swing and a miss, swing at a big-time first-round pick or a wide receiver, he fails, N'Keal Harry, or they take a swing at Sony Michel, didn't pan out the way they wanted, and they took Michel over Chubb. So there's just so many. For the Patriots, they'll probably, if a linebacker falls to them, they'll grab him. If not, they'll trade back, and I think they'll grab Mechie in the second round, but what do I know? So with that, Scotty, huge MLB board. How'd you do last night? What are you seeing today? Just briefly before I bring up the board.
Yeah, no worries. I went 2-1 yesterday. I lost on I think probably a bad break in the game, but it happens that way. I'm not calling it a bad beat like some of these games have been. But I played Seattle and Tampa Bay over the 7.5 or 8, whatever it was, and it was 7.5. And Tampa Bay gets up and walk, base hit, scores a run, and things are going great. Well, they hit a line drive off the pitcher's arm, and they take the pitcher out, so they put a new guy in. he only had one out in the inning, and then the new guy comes in, and they've never seen him before, so it just started to unravel in terms of the scoring. Anyway, that game I think ended 3-2, so it was 5 runs in that game, and I went under the number, and I played it over the number. But I was on I played Houston yesterday, won that game, and I played Miami and won that game. So those are the 2 winners. So not so bad.
Big slate today in the afternoon. My eyes are not deceiving me. I will tell everyone that wants to listen and that follows the numbers. Teams that are the overnight favorites, and then you wake up the next morning and they're underdogs. Those teams have been coming in. And so just keep an eye on that. And there's one today. Now, I don't know if it's beating a dead horse or I talked about this last week to you, Scotty, where Melee was a dog and you wake up in the morning, he's the favorite. Well, the actual overnight number was San Diego minus 120. I've seen it 115, 118. Now Melee is the Male, however you want to pronounce it, is the favorite there. But we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games that go from 12:35 to 4:07. So a lot of work overnight, a lot of work this morning. I'm going to pull up Wager Talk for everyone here so you can get a look at it. I know the Webby odds were out early last night. Fun day. We call this travel day, obviously. But my eyes, I can't wait. I got both of them, but we got a good one in Toronto with Whitlock and Manoa, but the board's yours, sir.
Well, let me just say this before we get too far started. A couple of breaking news things here. Number one, in the Minnesota game today, there is no Byron Buxton playing. That's a big deal. And number two, in Atlanta, Ronald Acuna Jr. is now back, and he should be playing tonight for Atlanta. So that makes that team a lot different. So anyway, two food for thought things there. I did look at lineups this morning a little bit. They're just now getting released, and in Milwaukee, so I guess it's not in Milwaukee. It's the game Milwaukee's in. You've got what's the guy's name in the outfield there? Yelich. You got no Yelich today, which is no big deal. I mean, he's not batting 200 yet, so I don't. That might actually be a good thing for them. So anyway, I didn't make these suggestions or plays today based off of who was in the lineup. I think that sometimes we get carried away with trying to figure out that part of it a little bit. Of course, you don't want 3 or 4 guys out of a lineup, but one guy being out for one game is not really a big deal. A lot of times the guy that replaces him does pretty well. So in that game, Milwaukee and Pittsburgh today, you have Peralta and Quintana pitching. And metrics wise, you've got a pretty good edge for Peralta. I mean, Peralta's Sierra number's 383 and Quintana's is 548. So you've got almost a 2-run advantage there just in that number alone. Plus, Peralta's at 12 in terms of strikeouts per 9 innings, and Quintana's at 5. So you're going to have control on the mound to a degree for Milwaukee, and you're not in Pittsburgh. So balls are going to be put in play against Quintana. And then you got to look at it from a perspective that Peralta, over his first 3 starts, he's been below average. Now, his last start was pretty good. I'm expecting him to piggyback off of his last start and have another good start. One of the factors that I look at that's going to tell me that is the batting average against him is kind of high, really. It's 271, but the BABIP number is 387. That's extremely high. So that means he's being very unlucky in which the balls are being hit, not to fielders. They're getting through the gaps and getting through and for base hits. So that's usually something that cycles around, and I expect that to come back down. So when you look at it from a perspective that he's got control on the mound, he's going to have good strikeout rate. He's going to have, he's got better metrics, and he's been unlucky in where balls are hit. I think Pittsburgh's going to have a hard time scoring today. So the only way to really get into that game is to look at it in a first five number, and so I like it first five minus a half, minus 115 in that game for Milwaukee. And then I went to Minnesota, the scene of the crime for me a couple nights ago. And I like Scooble. I like Scooble a lot. Liked him for the beginning of the season. I've liked him. He's going to pitch against Minnesota and Ober today. There is no Miggy in the lineup today for Detroit, by the way. And when I look at this game, there's a couple things in play. Again, I talked about the Babbitt numbers and so forth, and we have the same issue here for Scooble that we did with Peralta. So he's been unlucky with where balls have been hit, and it's not something that he can control that way. His metrics, he's got a 2.65 and a 2.47 xFIP, so they're really great numbers against Ober, who's 4.21, 4.18, which is about average. So you got a little bit of an edge with Scooble on the mound. And then the thing that kind of threw it over the top for me in this particular situation is one of the best pitches that Scooble throws. He's 2 outs or 2 runs saved above average on his slider. And Minnesota doesn't hit that pitch. They are minus 14 runs to the average on the slider. So I like the idea that this pitching matchup actually favors Scooble against the lineup for the Twins. And I'm going to go ahead and take Scooble plus the 130 in a full game here. So that was selection number 2. Two more. And just quickly, you're looking at Chicago White Sox. We've been talking about not betting on the White Sox until they get healthy. Well, they won yesterday. That doesn't mean they're healthy. But sometimes you get these matchups where you got pitchers that you can't just walk away from. Now, this is a spot where Kansas City comes in, and they're throwing a pretty good pitcher too in Keller. Keller's a big ground ball guy, and Kopech's a big strikeout guy. So the big difference here is that when you look at Kopech and what his best pitch is, obviously you sit there and go, well, it's got to be a fastball. And you look at it, and yep, his fastball, he's got 5.1 outs or runs saved with his fastball. And then you look at how Kansas City does against the fastball, and they're minus 11 runs. That's not very good at all. That's one of the worst in all of baseball because you got to hit the fastball. If you can't hit the fastball, you're not going to win games. And guess what? This is a bad spot for Kansas City in that regard. And again, you got to figure out how do you get into these games. And I'm not playing the White Sox bullpen right now; it's in shambles. So I'm going with Kopech in the first 5, minus a half run, minus 120. And then the last game that I am going to play, and it's one I just kind of added on later, only because there's the same similar philosophy here. You got the unluckiness against him, which is Verlander. Verlander's really good today against Texas. He's 5-0 in his last 5 starts against Texas, by the way. And he has a Babbitt disadvantage, meaning that balls in play are much higher batting average wise than the regular batting average. But he also has a lot of different variety of pitches that, again, Texas doesn't really hit. And one of the things, I'm going to flip it over here for 1 second. One of the things that I liked here too is he's at a flip-flop in game score. So you sit there and you look at it. Perez, the pitcher for Texas, and Perez game score 74 the last time out. That and his game score for the season is 51. So that means he had, 2 below average to average starts with a really good start. Well, that means that you can expect him to be back to at least that average or get that number back down. So you're going to expect him to have a poor start. And it was his last start was a game score 49, which is the worst start for Verlander. So Verlander's going to go out and throw a pretty good game today. So I like the idea that we're going to be able to capitalize on that. We'll take him first 5 minus a half run minus 125. Those are my 4 plays so far, Jeff.
It's funny because your eyes are seeing the same thing I do this morning. Verlander got us good. We had a 3-0 lead. And then he gives up 1 run in the 4th, so it's 3-1. And I got to keep rehashing this to remember this. So then we come to the top of the 5th, and it's 6, 7, 8, 9. He gets the 6 batter. He gets the 7 batter. So I'm literally getting ready to grade this one, and then 2 outs, and then number 8 guy hits a solo homer. So it's still 3-2. I'm like, all right, we're good. We're good. The number 9 batter gets up and hits a homer, 3-3. And then he gives up another one. It was 4-3. And then Houston didn't score in the bottom of the 5th, and we lost on that one last time Verlander was out. But going on to today's games, I talked about it overnight. San Diego minus 125. Wake up this morning, now they're minus 105, 105. If you've been on San Diego the first couple of games in Cincinnati, there's not a problem for you to jump back on them one more time there. I think a Padre at minus 105 today is definitely in play. Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, I don't see anything to go in there. Colorado, Phillies, again, Zach Wheeler did the same thing that Verlander did to us his last start. He had a 3-0 lead, and then he blew up in the 5th. Anyone that wants to go back in with Zach Wheeler, first 5, I don't have a problem with it, minus the half run there. Kind of surprised you didn't bring this game up. I think there's definitely an edge with Rogers, first 5 over Corbin. Corbin has not been good this year at all. And since the flip on moving Jazz to the leadoff and moving Soler down, the Marlins are now 6-1 and winners of 4 in a row. I think you got a nice edge with Rogers, who opened up minus 160, now minus 140. Again, how do we get into that game? I don't like playing a lot of minus 140s, 145s, 150. They add up. So if you want to get cute and if you can get a minus 130, 35, first 5, which I don't think you can, that's fine. If you want to go with the half run, I don't see a problem there as well. Acuna coming in. As Scotty said, for Atlanta, there's going to be a buzz. That's actually tonight, so I'll hold off there. Baltimore, New York, it is what it is. If you want to get cute and play the Yankees first 5 minus the hook, go ahead. You want to play a full game minus the run line, I'm not touching it. So flexing versus Springs. Give us your take on Mr. Springs for Tampa.
Springs relief pitcher. So this is, what the Rays do is a bullpen game. What's good about Springs is it's when you look at strikeouts per 9 innings today on the board, there's a few guys in double digits. He's one of them. 11.5 per 9 innings, but that's only because he goes 1 or 2 innings. Now this is a guy who's only going to go 1 or 2 innings. He's not going to go 3, 4, anything like that. Seattle hadn't seen him, so I don't think this is a good spot for him. It's going to be what kind of comes in after that, and flexing. We all know he's a soft tosser, so it just depends on where the balls are hit, and then what does Tampa Bay do regarding the rest of how they fill out the 9 innings. And the only thing I'll tell you is that it's a good spot for Tampa Bay, and especially against flexing. I just don't want to pay the number, and I don't want to get involved in, Springs wasn't good today or whatever, or they got behind early. But I do think that it's a good spot for them, and Wander Franco is just going crazy.
That's why you paid the man. Uh, I like where Scotty's eyes are with Scooble. I do think there's an edge there. If I was to play the Tigers today, I would play them first 5. You get a nice plus price money on them straight up, or you could pay a little juice and get them plus a half run just in case they're tied there. Um, Piggyback again with Scotty in Houston. I definitely see an edge there. But Perez is one of those guys, Scotty. He's sneaky. He can show some flashes. I think Houston uh, is the play here. I'm going to stay off of Verlander. I'm a little salty what he did to us. I'm going to root the hell out of him for you guys there. KC and White Sox, I think you're spot on. You know, a team loses 6 in a row and then they finally win one. You're supposed to piggyback on them to come back again. I love Kopech first 5 minus the hook there. I think the game of the afternoon will be Whitlock versus Manoah. You got to remember here, guys. Remember and trust, respect the opening number. They had Toronto minus 170. It's down to 145. They got some overnight or corrected money on the Red Sox. Nice win for them yesterday. Cora's back. Okay, there's no team in the majors that feeds more off of their coach or manager, and that's Alex Cora. And he had that scowl all day, and he got the win that they needed to stop the bleeding. Unfortunately, now they got to go to their ace right now. I think Whitlock's their ace the way he's been pitching, but he's up against a kid that can throw gas. So it's going to be a great game I'm going to just sit and watch. I got futures on Manoah. I'm a big Whitlock fan, so we're going to watch that one. And Cleveland Angels are heating up at the right time. Mr. Ward with the granny. Trout's heating up. Big timely hits, as I'd say. I do lean Detmers with a nice edge there. Again, I'm not going to go and throw the minus 170 or 60. If you wanted to get into that game, you would have to go minus half first 5 there. Though we did win an Angels full game earlier this week. Again, for the VIPs, we've started off real well this week. We're 5-2. It's a day that you don't want to give the bank away, but there are some opportunities today. It's just a matter for me what the spaghetti strainer says. Closing thoughts, Scott.
Well, it's Thursday. A lot of day game baseball. Only 2 night games. Keep an eye on the runs because they're going to start. They're going to score them. Offenses are coming. Some of these guys are now in their 4th and 5th starts. So Maley's in his 5th start today. Corbin's in his 5th start today. And then you also have to watch. You made a comment about Rodgers today, and I'm not as high on him this year as I was last year. I think he's going through what I would call the sophomore slump right now. Once he gets, in my opinion, or once he gets to a point where, he's as dominant as he was last year. I mean, he's below average on strikeouts. He's a little high on walks. Once he gets to a point where he can get that stuff under control, I think I'll be back to supporting him. But right now, I think that's one of the guys, and you can do this to lots of guys. And, hitters do this too. They have great seasons, and then the next season they kind of slump off a little bit, and then the third season they go back to being what they were or better. And maybe Rodgers is in that ballpark. But I've always thought Rodgers was not Sixto Sanchez. He's also not Lopez. He's also not Alcantara. He's a good pitcher, but he's not that kind of good pitcher. So the only good thing about him, he's left-handed. And he's got that weird delivery where it's long and weird. But anyway, I do like Rodgers. I like Miami's team. I just wish they could. And now that they're hitting, you can be betting on them. But they just got to stay hitting, and then you can bet on them all the time because they're going to pitch. This team's going to pitch, especially the starters. But as the season goes and as things happen, everything's volatile. So you got to be able to move on a dime, right? So the one thing I would caution and throw out there is if you got a guy that's just missing one game, don't worry about it. It's not that big a deal. If you got 3 or 4 guys in a lineup not in there, that makes a big difference because the team's not the same. So the record that they have is predicated based on a regular starting lineup. And if you got 4 guys out of that regular starting lineup, they're not the same team. So the record that lineup had produced is not there anymore. So you just got to be careful there. But if you're missing one guy, Mike Trout, they sit him every once in a while. They got Yelich being sat today. You got Miggy in Detroit being sat today. Don't worry about one guy being out of a lineup. Lots of times the guy that comes in to replace him is specifically selected because of the pitcher that they face and has had success against that pitcher. And it's a good time I can sit this guy too. So that's kind of how it works.
For me, Thursday, I always like to break down the week. Monday, Tuesdays, the days that you want to get a nice start to the week. It's always easier to, play from ahead than behind. If a week ago we started out Monday 0-3 behind, chasing the whole week. And when I say chase, I mean, you want to chip away. You're not going to go 5 games the next 4 days in a row trying to get back to even and then on the plus side. But with that said, we were able to do that. We hit the parlay at the end of the week there to end on the plus side. This week we're 5-2. We're floating almost close to plus 3 units. It's a nice board today, but it's a day that you don't want to push the chips and you really want to sift through the madness here. And I think there are a couple nuggets here that, you can take advantage of with the short menu tonight. Secondly, don't get caught up in the hysteria of the draft today. If you have a couple people that you follow, a couple sites that you follow, I can tell you this. I heard this morning that the Vegas poker / the draft is probably, we're in for one of the craziest first rounds ever. So don't always believe what you're hearing, and whatever site that you're using, these numbers could flip-flop on a dime. Vegas, you can't bet right now. It's within 24 hours. New Jersey, you can do it live. New York's not even posting any odds. So just be careful. If you want to put some pizza and beer money on a few props, go ahead. I'll just throw this out here again. I like what Julian said about Mechie. He had him at 59.5. He is tied to the Patriots. If the Patriots don't have a big-time wide receiver that falls into their lap, they'll either draft someone on defense or they'll do what they do best and they'll trade their pick, move back, try to get a couple more second and third rounders. And then that's where you could stockpile someone like a Mechie or another wide receiver in those rounds. So with that said, comments, questions, concerns, you can find me at EC Sports Invest on Twitter, Scotty at Webby20MLB. If you're not a member of our Discord channel, DM one of us. We can talk to you about that. Lastly, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube or Twitch channel, please go to East Coast Sports Investors. Hit the subscribe button, smash the like button. It's free. Just turn on the notifications. You'll never miss a live show. With that said, if you are wagering this afternoon or investing, please do it responsibly. If you do have a problem, pick up the phone. There's an 800 number available. Ask for help. Why? Myself and Scotty care. We want to see you here today, tomorrow, next week, next month, through 2022 and beyond. From myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from Scotty Webb at Webby20MLB, we wish everyone a blessed morning and afternoon. Have some fun with the games. The weekend's almost here, and we will see you either 4 or 4:30 for the closing bell.